For hundreds of thousands of years, the planet known as Terra 9 had been ignored by the galaxy. It was quiet, covered in layers of dust and rock, with no signs of life on the surface. Once, long ago, it had been a beautiful world, full of forests, oceans, and cities that touched the clouds. Now, it was nothing but a dead planet at the edge of the galaxy, forgotten by time and erased from most maps. Beneath the planet's dry surface, however, hidden under miles of rock and metal, something ancient was still alive. Deep in the core of the planet, giant machines had continued their work for 870,000 years without stopping. These machines were not like the simple technology used by most of the Galactic Federation. They were self-repairing, fully independent, and powered by energy sources that modern science could not understand. Their job was simple: keep the cryo vaults running. Inside those vaults, thousands of human beings slept in silence, frozen in time. These were not ordinary humans. They were handpicked from the final days of Earth, selected for their strength, intelligence, and genetic potential. They were the last hope of a species that once ruled the stars, then chose to vanish rather than be destroyed in the endless wars of the galaxy. And now, something had changed. A small Federation exploration drone, sent on a routine mission to map old star systems, passed close to Terra 9. The drone picked up strange energy readings, signals that didn't match any known natural phenomenon. Curious, the Federation's Science Corps sent a scout team to investigate. The scout ship, named Velner's Light, landed cautiously near what appeared to be a long-buried artificial structure. The crew, made up of scientists and explorers from different species, began their search with scanning tools and robotic diggers. At first, they found only broken stone and strange metals. But as they dug deeper, they uncovered something far more unusual: a sealed entrance, guarded by machines that still moved. These machines did not attack but scanned the team, silently recording data. Then the door opened, releasing a soft blue mist and revealing a smooth tunnel that led far underground. The Federation team, unsure of what they were walking into, continued with caution. Their leader, a tall insectoid named Commander Farn, kept his weapon ready. "Whatever built this, it's not extinct," he warned. As the team went deeper, they saw strange glowing lights on the walls. The air became warmer, more alive, as if the underground systems were waking up. Suddenly, one of the scientists, a quiet avian named Dr. Riga, pointed at a screen flickering to life. On it, they saw rows and rows of human-shaped figures lying in glass chambers. Most were still asleep, but one chamber showed signs of change. The temperature inside it was rising, and the chamber's lights were blinking. Something was about to happen. The team stepped back as steam hissed from the edges of the glass. Slowly, the chamber opened with a deep mechanical sound. Inside, they saw a man, tall and muscular, his body still covered in frost. His eyes were closed, his breath slow, but then he opened them. Bright silver eyes stared at the aliens, calm but alert. The man stepped out, and the machines around him adjusted to support his movement. He did not speak, but looked at each of them carefully. His skin was pale, marked with strange patterns, and his presence made the entire team uneasy. Dr. Riga whispered, Is this a human?" The name human had become legend in the galaxy. Most young beings believed humans were only a story, a race of powerful creatures who had once challenged the entire galaxy, then disappeared without a trace. The Federation had searched for proof of their existence for generations, but found nothing. Now, standing in front of them, was living proof. The human looked around the room, as if scanning the machines. Then, in a deep, calm voice, he finally spoke. "Status: Cryosystems stable. Biological revival sequence successful. Awaiting command." The words were simple, but the voice was powerful. The Federation team was stunned. Varn took a careful step forward. "We come in peace," he said. "We found your vault by accident." "Who are you?" The human turned to him, then looked at a glowing panel on the wall. He touched it, and more lights came to life. Slowly, more chambers around the room began to glow, systems activating one by one. "I am Commander Aaron Solas," he said. "Unit 1 of the Final Earth Contingency. Are you representatives of the Galactic Council?" Varn didn't know how to answer. The Council hadn't dealt with humans in hundreds of thousands of years. "We're scientists," he finally replied. "We didn't know any of you still existed." The human looked down for a moment, then nodded. "We were not supposed to be found yet," he said. "But if the vault has been discovered, then the galaxy may be in danger again." Those words sent chills through the team. What danger? What was he talking about? Before anyone could ask more, alarms began to sound in the chamber. The vault's systems had detected the presence of outsiders, and the automatic defense programs were waking up. Aaron raised a hand, and the alarm stopped. He turned to the team. "You must leave for now. This place is not ready for visitors. Return to your people. Tell them the humans have awakened." Varn hesitated. "Will you leave this planet?" Aaron's expression remained calm, but firm. "When it is time. But not yet. We must prepare. Tell your leaders, humanity remembers everything." As the team made their way back to the surface, silence filled the tunnel. None of them spoke. The discovery they had just made would change everything. In the vast halls below the planet's crust, thousands of chambers now glowed softly. One by one, they began the process of waking. Machines hummed louder. Lights grew brighter. The humans were not returning with fire and war. They were returning with purpose, and no one in the galaxy was ready for what came next. The news of the ancient human vault's discovery traveled through the Galactic Federation like a lightning storm through a dry forest. Worlds far and wide received the message with disbelief, confusion, and rising fear. Most considered humans a long-extinct species, a dangerous myth from the ancient records of a time before the Federation even existed. To them, humans were tales whispered in the dark, of creatures that defied gravity with thought, endured pain like stone, and changed entire planets with their will. But now, all those stories were no longer legend. A message had been sent from the remote world of Terra 9, once labeled uninhabitable, stating that a human had awakened from cryo-sleep after nearly 870,000 years. Not a fossil, not a recording, a real, living human. The Federation immediately dispatched a larger team to confirm the claim, including political observers, historians, and elite guards, all escorted by high-ranking officials who had never believed such a thing could be true. But for those who had seen him, the crew of Velner's Light, the truth was undeniable. They had watched a human open his eyes and speak with clarity, as if no time had passed at all. They had seen machines obey his presence and ancient systems come to life just by his touch. Now, as they returned to the vault for a second meeting, a strange silence filled the air. None of them dared to predict what would happen next. Commander Aaron Solas stood inside the awakening chamber, surrounded by softly glowing cryopods, each containing another human like him, still in deep sleep. He moved with calm, precise motions, studying the data streams on the control panels, absorbing centuries of information in seconds. His mind, far superior to the beings now entering the room, worked like a weapon, sharp, fast, and unshakable. The door slid open, and the Federation delegation stepped in, led by a gray-skinned diplomat named Merc Tall, whose thin limbs trembled slightly at the sight of the human. Aaron turned slowly, his silver eyes scanning the newcomers without emotion. There was no aggression in his posture, but something about his presence made even the guards grip their weapons tighter. Merc cleared his throat. "I am here on behalf of the Galactic Federation. We seek peaceful understanding with your kind." The human remained still for a moment, then nodded once. "Acknowledged. I have accessed recent galactic data. Your Federation governs many systems. Efficient, but flawed." Merc blinked, unsure whether it was a compliment or criticism. May I ask why your people were placed into cryosleep? Why now? After so long, have you awakened? Erin's gaze turned distant, as if he was looking through time itself. We left because the galaxy was bleeding, he said quietly. Wars, plagues, the rise of unstable artificial minds. Humanity had become the center of conflict, feared and hunted. So we chose to sleep, to remove ourselves until the galaxy healed. His voice carried no pride or regret, only truth. The vaults were built to last 1,000,000 years. Our reawakening was to begin only if specific conditions were met. One of them has now triggered. A murmur rippled through the delegation. Merc leaned forward. What condition? Erin turned to the panel behind him and activated a large holographic display. It showed dozens of star systems under red alert. The same mistakes are happening again, he said. Unstable technologies, expansion without balance, silence from several once thriving species. We calculated the timeline. Civilization is near collapse again. Merc hesitated. And you plan to stop it? Erin's answer was calm and final. We will guide it, or prevent its destruction. As he spoke, another cryopod hissed softly. The glass panel opened, and another figure began to rise. A woman, equally tall and strong, with eyes like golden hair that move as if touched by invisible winds. She blinked once, then turned toward Erin. Status, she asked. Initiation phase 1 complete, Erin replied. The woman nodded and stepped out silently, joining him without looking at the aliens watching her. Merc's voice shook. How many of you will wake? Erin looked at him. As many as needed. The guards shifted uncomfortably, and tension grew like a storm in the room. Sensing it, Erin spoke again. We do not seek war, but if war finds us, we will not be unprepared. His words were not a threat. They were a promise, one that reminded everyone of the old legends. Humans were not just survivors, they were forces of nature. Back in orbit, Federation ships watched every signal from the vault, trying to decode patterns, searching for signs of weapon systems. But the vault was too complex, too advanced. Every attempt to hack it failed. The Federation's best scientists had to admit they were outmatched. Erin's mind, even after centuries in stasis, moved faster than their most powerful quantum computers. His body, though it looked human, had cellular structures that repaired themselves in seconds, and his thoughts weren't shaped by emotion or fear. He was focused entirely on a single mission, restoring balance to the galaxy before it broke again. As more pods began to activate across the chamber, the Federation team was politely but firmly told to leave. Erin had no desire for politics or long debates. He simply said, "Return to your council. Tell them the first human has awakened, and that he is not alone." Back on the ship, Merc recorded his report with trembling hands. We have confirmed the presence of living humans, enhanced, intelligent, and extremely capable. They are waking. They do not seem hostile, but are preparing for something. We advise immediate discussion among all member species. This changes everything. In the days that followed, the galaxy seemed to hold its breath. Old enemies paused their battles. Hidden archives were reopened. And among the stars, whispers grew louder. Some feared the humans would try to conquer again. Others hoped they would bring order to a chaotic universe. But all agreed on one thing. Humanity had returned, and nothing would ever be the same again. Beneath the dust of a forgotten planet, the future was no longer uncertain. It had just opened its eyes. The Grand Hall of the Galactic Council, located on the ancient space station city of Veltraxis Prime, had not seen such chaos in over 10,000 years. Delegates from 1,000 species shouted over each other, voices echoing through the curved chamber like waves crashing against jagged rock. Panic spread faster than the translation systems could handle, and even the calmest diplomats found their claws, fins, or metallic limbs trembling with nervous energy. At the center of the storm, Supreme Speaker Lorith Cell pounded his staff against the glowing days, attempting to restore order. But no amount of ceremonial authority could contain the fear that now infected every corner of the galaxy. The reason was simple: a human had awakened. Not just one, but more were now rising from the long-forgotten vaults, hidden beneath Terra 9's surface. The Federation had ignored the ancient warnings, believing humanity to be a myth, a shadow lost to time. Now that myth had risen from the dead, walking with strength, knowledge, and purpose, and every species that once ruled in humanity's absence now feared what would come next. As silence finally returned to the chamber, Lorith activated a hologram in the air above the dais. It showed the footage captured from the first encounter with Aaron Solis, the calm way he spoke, the advanced systems he commanded, the second human that awakened beside him, and the message he gave before the Federation delegation was dismissed. Tell them the first human has awakened, and that he is not alone. The word hung heavy in the air, like smoke after a fire. Many council members remained motionless, while others whispered to their aides with growing desperation. A reptilian ambassador from the Thrask Empire spoke first. "This is a threat. Do not be fooled by calm words. Their kind nearly destroyed the galaxy once before." A feathered diplomat from the Orna clans responded sharply. "And they also saved us from the Void Plague. It was their science that cured our dying worlds. We owe them." The debate ignited again, but it was clear the council was split. Half remembered humans as monsters, unpredictable, powerful, and dangerous. The other half remembered them as saviors, brilliant, unyielding, and necessary. But all of them feared the unknown. In a secure chamber deep beneath the Grand Hall, the inner circle of the council met behind closed doors. These were the real decision-makers, the unseen hands guiding the politics of the galaxy. Their leader, a tall crystalline being named Carolyn, studied the reports with a cold, calculating stare. "Our worst-case scenario has arrived," they said. "The humans have not only survived but prepared. They waited for the moment we would be vulnerable. We are fractured by politics and greed. They are united by time and purpose." One of the strategists, a cybernetic mind encased in liquid steel, asked, "Should we strike now, before more awaken?" But Carolyn shook their head. "No, a direct assault would fail. Their technology is beyond us. They controlled starforges and memory weapons while we were still crawling from our atmospheres. We must understand their intent before we risk extinction." Another voice added, "What if they intend to take control again? The galaxy has changed. We won't surrender what we've built." Carolyn looked at them grimly. "We may not have a choice." Meanwhile, across the galaxy, old files were being decrypted. Military archives, once sealed, were now opened by trembling hands. Warnings written in forgotten languages were translated once more. Stories of humans commanding fleets alone, surviving black hole events, speaking in codes that machines couldn't break. These were not myths, they were records. The more they learned, the more frightened they became. No species had ever matched humanity's combination of aggression, adaptability, and intelligence. They didn't just survive, they dominated. And now they were back. Back from the deep cold of time, with a reason still unknown. On worlds near Terra 9, local governments began evacuating citizens, afraid that humanity's awakening would bring disaster. Some systems went dark, retreating behind shields and silence. Others began forming emergency alliances, desperate to present a united front. But fear ruled all decisions now. The Federation's grand illusion of peace was cracking, and everyone could hear it. At the same time, rumors began to spread of other human vaults activating. Small signals were being picked up from long-dead planets. Beacons that hadn't blinked in millennia suddenly lit the darkness. Aaron Solas and his people weren't the only ones stirring. The humans had not placed all their trust in one location. They had scattered their legacy across space, hidden beneath moons, inside asteroids, and beneath oceans, each one now responding to some ancient trigger. The Council received these updates with growing horror. Their networks weren't fast enough to track every activation. Their spies couldn't get close without being blinded by strange interference. It was like the galaxy itself was helping the humans return. Back in the Grand Hall, Speaker Lorith finally addressed the chamber again. We cannot unmake what has happened. But we must choose our path now. Fear will only feed destruction. If we act with hostility, we may bring about the very war we fear. But before he could finish, a new alert arrived, one that shook everyone to the core. A message had been received on all open channels, not just Federation ones. It was from Aaron Solis himself, broadcast in every known language, even ancient ones no longer spoken. His face appeared calm, serious, and full of authority. To the Galactic Federation and all species of this galaxy, he began. We are the children of Earth. We have returned not to conquer, but to prevent collapse. We remember your histories. We know your struggles. But we also see your mistakes. The galaxy stands at the edge of another great fall. We will not watch it burn. If you wish to understand, come to us in peace. If you seek conflict, you will find what your ancestors feared. Choose wisely. The message ended, and silence fell once more. The panic in the council deepened. Some demanded immediate military buildup. Others begged for diplomacy. A few resigned, too afraid to stay in power during what could be the end of the age. But deep down, all of them knew one thing. Humanity had returned with eyes wide open. They had waited in silence, but now they were speaking. And the galaxy would have to listen, whether it wanted to or not. Across the galaxy, every species waited with breath held, systems on alert, watching for what the humans would do next. The sudden awakening of Aaron Solis and the others, the messages they sent, and the silence that followed left the Galactic Federation gripped in fear and confusion. What was humanity's true goal? Why had they returned after hundreds of thousands of years in cryosleep? No one had answers, and no one dared to provoke them further. Ships remained hidden behind cloaking fields, while probes cautiously circled the abandoned world of Terra 9, now active again with unknown energy signatures. Even the bravest ambassadors hesitated, unsure whether approaching the humans meant peace or doom. But the silence did not last. Without warning, a massive construct emerged from beneath Terra 9's surface. It rose slowly, dust falling in waves from its enormous structure. A tower that reached far into the sky and pulsed with ancient light. The Federation identified it as a vault beacon, one of many long-rumored sites linked to humanity's final years. It was a transmitter, but not just for communication. It was a signal, a message to something far older than the Federation itself. Inside the vault beacon, Aaron Solis stood before a glowing platform, his eyes focused and calm. Around him, holograms shimmered with data, maps, and languages from thousands of civilizations, past and present. He placed his hand on the core console, and across the galaxy, every major system received the same message, clear and without interference. It was not just an announcement. It was a revelation. We are not your enemy, Aaron's voice said, echoing into every council chamber, military base, and home. We did not sleep to conquer the future. We slept because we saw the collapse coming. Your empires, your federations, your alliances, they are built on systems that will soon fail. We calculated the timeline, and we saw the same cycle repeating. War, peace, greed, decay. Again and again. We had to break that cycle, so we became the fail-safe, the last guardians, not of Earth, but of the galaxy's future. The words shocked many. Some refused to believe it, thinking it a trick, but others began to understand. The humans had not vanished out of weakness or destruction. They had chosen to disappear, to hide themselves in cryosleep while the galaxy played out its endless rise and fall. They had left behind no rulers, no weapons, no warnings, just silence and the faint memory of their power. But now, at the edge of another collapse, they had returned, not with warships or demands, but with a plan. Aaron continued. We studied every civilization. We watched through hidden networks. We waited. And now, the signs are clear. Your systems are reaching the same limits. Economic collapse, civil unrest, artificial rebellions, dying stars, corrupted ecosystems. You stand on the edge of another fall. We have not come to rule. We have come to stop it. The message detailed a system, one humans had built long ago, a web of stabilizing technologies hidden across hundreds of worlds, energy regulators buried in dying suns, gravity anchors stabilizing rogue planets, star maps predicting dark matter shifts. These were the tools left behind by humanity, quietly maintaining galactic balance without anyone noticing. But now, that balance was breaking. Some of the systems were failing, damaged by war, neglect, or forgotten entirely. The galaxy thought it was thriving on its own, not knowing it had been protected all along. The Vault beacon began to activate the remaining systems, reconnecting ancient machines to a unified network. Massive pulses of energy traveled through deep space, reaching devices hidden for hundreds of thousands of years. Across the stars, broken regions began to stabilize. Orbiting stations that had drifted out of alignment snapped back into position. Dead communication links reconnected. Failing suns flickered with new energy as old human tech reawakened beneath them. But not everyone welcomed this. In the council, many leaders panicked again. "They are taking control," some shouted. "We didn't ask for this." Yet others remained quiet, awed by the precision, the scale, the quiet brilliance of what humanity had done. A species that had disappeared was now silently saving them, not asking for loyalty or power, just restoring balance. Back on Terra 9, Aaron stood with his team, watching the first phase of activation complete. "We gave them time," he said to his second-in-command, a woman named Elia. "And now time has run out. They were never meant to rule without guidance for this long." Elia nodded. "Do you think they'll listen now?" Aaron stared out toward the stars. "Some will. Some won't. But the galaxy will survive." That was always the purpose. In hidden places, some species began to reconsider their understanding of humanity. The old legends that painted humans as monsters began to shift. Records once locked in archives were reviewed again. Words from human philosophers, scientists, and leaders long gone were studied. Slowly, respect began to replace fear. But even as hope spread, darker forces moved. Not all species wanted stability. For some, chaos was profit. For others, war was power. A group of rogue systems, calling themselves the Crimson Divide, declared war against any human interference. They claimed humanity's return was the beginning of galactic slavery. They broadcast propaganda, twisted facts, and warned that the humans would soon demand tribute and control. Aaron and his team knew this would happen. Conflict was inevitable. But they had not returned to fight. It would be up to the rest of the galaxy to choose its path. Help rebuild the failing systems together, or fall into the same cycle again. In a final part of his message, Aaron addressed all species directly. "You have three choices: stand with us and rebuild what is broken. Remain neutral, and we will not interfere, or fight us, and you will face the strength that once defended 1,000 worlds from extinction. We will not force you, but we will not allow this galaxy to fall again." And with that, the message ended. The Vault beacon dimmed, and Terra 9 returned to silence. But the stars were already moving. Ships launched from hidden human vaults. Ancient tech powered up in forgotten sectors. The fail-safe was active. And the galaxy had to decide. Would it trust the ones who had prepared for this moment 870,000 years ago? Or would fear lead it to ruin again? As the council met again in urgent session, opinions were divided. But one thing was now clear to all. Humanity had not returned for revenge or domination. Their purpose was greater, deeper, and far more terrifying in its calm logic. They had come not as rulers, but as guardians, and they would not let the galaxy fall. Not this time. The stars were never silent again after the return of humanity. Their ancient systems, once thought to be myths, had reactivated across the galaxy. Broken planets were repaired, corrupted gravitational fields were corrected, and dying suns had started to burn brighter once more. For the first time in many millennia, the galaxy was being reshaped, not by war or conquests, but by silent hands working with knowledge far beyond anything the Galactic Federation had ever imagined. Where there had once been panic, confusion, and fear, now there was only a strange calm, like the breath before a storm or the beginning of something new. The Council had no choice but to accept that the humans had spoken the truth. Their purpose was never domination, only preservation. Still, even in the face of this overwhelming knowledge, not everyone agreed. Some feared the idea of a species that had planned so far ahead, waited so long, and now moved without asking for permission. Others, however, saw hope. For the first time, there was a path forward that didn't end in destruction. Humanity had shown the galaxy what it had become in the shadows of time. Not rulers, but guardians of the future. On the planet of Lithar Prime, the central chamber of the Galactic Council echoed with debate. Some members still demanded resistance. Others pushed for cooperation. And then there were those who simply didn't know what to believe anymore. But outside the chambers, across countless worlds, the people had already begun to change. Citizens looked to the skies with new curiosity. Children studied human history with fascination, eager to learn how a species could disappear for nearly 1,000,000 years and still return with such wisdom. On once warring worlds, ceasefires were called. Battles paused as military leaders watched in awe as humanity's ancient technologies repaired battlefields overnight. Ships that had been adrift for centuries were towed back into orbit by silent drones. Food systems were stabilized, water purified, and disease control satellites reactivated by machines long buried beneath alien soil. This was not the work of conquerors. It was the work of those who had seen the galaxy fall before and refused to let it happen again. Meanwhile, Erin Solas stood on a platform high above the restored control tower of Terra 9. He watched the pulse of light spread from the vault beacon across the stars. His team, once thought to be relics of a forgotten time, now stood as the bridge between two ages, the last generation of the old Earth and the first architects of a new galactic future. Elia, ever calm and focused, approached him. "The systems are stable," she said quietly. "The vaults are responding. Even the deep space nodes from Sector 7 have come online. Everything is moving faster than expected." Erin nodded, his eyes still on the stars. "They needed hope," he replied. "Now they have it. But this is only the beginning. They must learn to build again, not under our control, but with our guidance. We can't fix everything for them." Elia smiled faintly. "Do you think they're ready?" Erin remained silent for a moment. Then, with quiet certainty, he answered, "They have to be. Because the next threat won't wait another 1,000,000 years." Across the galaxy, quiet messages were exchanged between once isolated systems. The Federation was no longer the center of control. It had become part of a larger web, a galaxy now working together for the first time in recorded history. Human Aes, ancient but reawakened, guided star engineers in rebuilding lost habitats. Old human data cages were shared, not locked away, filled with knowledge on energy balance, climate control, disease resistance, and peaceful diplomacy. These were not weapons, they were seeds of survival. And yet, the memory of war still lingered. Rogue groups like the Crimson Divide still existed, hiding in the shadows, watching for signs of weakness. But now they were no longer seen as rebels. They were seen as outdated, a reminder of the old ways that had led to collapse. The new generation wanted something different. They had tasted fear, but now they hungered for unity. Soon, the council called for a special gathering, not of politicians or generals, but of thinkers, scientists, teachers, and explorers. The location was neutral, a newly stabilized moon, once lost to gravitational storms, now restored by human intervention. Representatives from over 500 species gathered there. There was no throne, no ruler, just a circle, open to all. And at the center, not leading but listening, stood Aaron Solas and Elia. They spoke not of control, but of rebuilding. Not of human superiority, but of shared strength. The speech was brief but powerful. "This galaxy does not belong to one species," Aaron said. "It belongs to those willing to protect it. We will not lead your people, but we will walk beside you. And when the next great danger comes, and it will, we must stand together. Not as enemies, not even as allies, but as one." The words were carried across space, broadcast freely, untranslated because the message was clear in any tongue. And on that day, something changed, not just in laws or politics, but in the minds of the people. A new era had begun, not because humanity had taken power, but because they had chosen to give it back. They reminded the galaxy that survival was not about dominance, but wisdom, not about fear, but hope. And while many questions still remained, and many dangers still waited in the dark corners of space, there was now something stronger than any weapon or alliance. There was unity, quiet, growing, and unshakable. As the stars shone down on Terra 9, now humming with life and light, Aaron closed his eyes for a moment and whispered to himself, "This is why we slept. This is why we returned." And with that, the human beacon went dark, not because it had failed, but because its purpose had been fulfilled. The galaxy was no longer asleep. It was awake, aware, and moving forward into a new galactic era.